Welcome to the Royal Photographic Society's annual awards ceremony. The RPS has recognised individuals working across the art and science of photography since 1878, and it's my honour to announce the recipients of the RPS Awards for 2022. We start with recognising those who have provided significant service to the RPS, our Fenton medalists. The first recipient is Sue Brown, FRPS. Sue joined the RPS in 1980. She gained her first fellowship in 1991 and her second in 2019. She has sat on the Visual Art Group Committee and started the very successful Visual Art Group meetings in the South West. Sue sat on the Distinctions Committee for several years and was part of the Landscape Assessment Panel and the Visual Art Panel, which she chaired. Our next recipient is Robert Gates, ARPS. Joining the Society in 1971, Bob gained his LRPS in 1972 and his associateship in 1980. In the 1980s, he managed the Society's joint entry scheme for bulk print submissions to international salons. He was the Society's regional organiser for Yorkshire and a trustee and council member from 2010 to 2017, amongst other roles. Bob set up the volunteer group at the then National Media Museum in Bradford, helping prepare the RPS collection for digitisation. Our next recipient is Janet Haynes, ARPS. After joining the RPS, Janet took on various roles before becoming chair of the Digital Imaging Group. After she gained her associate, she became an assessor on the licentiate panels. Janet served 2 years as a trustee and continues to volunteer, organising the RPS AGM in 2021 and 2022. She still supports the Digital Imaging Group and the South West region. Our final Fenton medalist is Richard Brown, FRPS. Richard gained his associate in 1978 and fellowship 2 years later. In 1980, he was invited to become a member of the new Licentiate Slide Sound Sequencers panel. He was an AV assessor more or less continuously for 42 years, serving on all 4 iterations of the panel. He served as chair of the AV group for 4 years. Richard was area organiser for the group for many years and is a past chairman of the RPS National AV Championships. Our Members Award recognises extraordinary support to the RPS over a sustained period. It comes with honorary life membership. This year's Members Award goes to Mark Phillips, FRPS, chair of the documentary group. Mark and his team have focused on running a small number of core team events and supporting regional subgroups to put on local events. They typically revolve around Decisive Moment, the online magazine, workshops on documentary and visual storytelling, engagement talks, and Documentary Photographer of the Year, the biennial touring exhibition. The Selwyn Award is open to early career researchers, where research and/or the application of their work to imaging is their primary function. This year's recipient is Edward Fry. Edward received his BSc in Photography and Digital Imaging and his PhD in Imaging Science from the University of Westminster. He's currently working for Apple's renowned camera team in Cupertino, California, after interning with them in 2015. He has developed camera sharpness and noise measures that account for adaptive image processing, such as denoising, demosaicing, and sharpening. Such processing is applied routinely by many of today's camera systems, including in smartphones and autonomous vehicles, with their accompanying challenges for imaging engineers. Allied in subject matter is the RPS Award for Scientific Imaging, which this year goes to Babak Tafreshi. Babak is an Iranian-American science photographer for the National Geographic, merging art and science through visual stories. His passion for the night sky started in childhood. In the past 25 years, he has photographed breathtaking scenes of the night sky in all continents, in an effort to reveal the wonders of science to the public, to preserve the natural night environment against our growing light pollution, and connect cultures through common interest in the night sky. He created the World at Night programme in 2007 and has been directing a team of 40 people in over 20 countries, which includes some of the world's most accomplished night sky photographers. The World at Night book, authored by Babak, is published in many languages. Babak is also a cinematographer, specialising in time-lapse motions and 360 VRs of the night sky. His work is recognised by prestigious awards including 2022 National Geographic Wayfinder Award and the 2009 Leonard Nilsson Award. As a science communicator, he uses his visual contents to create an understandable portal to wonders of the night sky. How we see photography is often mediated through exhibitions and publications, and our next awards recognise individuals working in these areas. The RPS Award for Curatorship is given to Anne McNeil. Anne has played a pivotal role in British photography as a curator, an editor, and a writer. She began her career in 1984 in the darkrooms at Camera Work and worked throughout the 1980s as both a photographer and educator in the field of community photography. In 1993, she led the cross-channel photographic mission through a period of change, establishing it as PhotoWorks, and in 1995, she became founding director and curator. During this time, Anne was also an associate lecturer at London College of Communication at the University of the Arts. Anne was the artistic director of Photo 98, the UK Year of Photography, and since 2000 has been the director and curator of Impressions Gallery, a charity that helps people understand the world through photography and acts as an agent of change. She was the driving force behind relocating Impressions from York to Bradford, opening the first ever purpose-built photography gallery in the UK in 2007.
I'm truly honoured and delighted to be the recipient of this prestigious Curators Award. I'd like to thank the Royal Photographic Society for giving it to me. It actually means a lot, thank you. I'd like to thank whoever it was that nominated me, the President and the Selection Committee of the RPS. I just want to say a few words about how I got into photography. It was many years ago when I was 7 and I saw a programme about the Cottingley Ferries and I asked Santa for a camera. And actually, here's the camera. This is my very first camera. It's a Kodak Instamatic 133X. A few words about what photography means to me. I believe photography is a universal language, and in the right hands, it can be a great tool. Throughout my career as a curator, I've always tried to make photography democratic. I've worked with photographers that have been maybe underrepresented because of their class and their race, and tried to give them opportunities through exhibitions and publications. I'm really proud of the work that I do here at Impressions Gallery, working with the next generation of new emerging photographers, collaborating with them to have their seminal exhibition that then goes on and makes their name in their career. I'm very, very proud of that. I'm also really passionate and really pleased that throughout my long career I've been able to champion the work of women photographers. So thank you so much for the award. And just before I finish, I'd like to say something that my mum once said. So towards the end of her life, my mum was housebound, and the priest used to come every week to give her communion. And one weekend I was up there and the priest was slightly deaf, so I wasn't eavesdropping. I heard this because they were shouting at each other, and the priest says to Mum, "Which one's that?" Because there's six children. And Mum said, "That one's Anne." And the priest said, "Well, what does Anne do?" And Mum said, "She's a curator." And the priest's like, "What's a curator?" And Mum said, "I'm not sure, but it makes her happy."
The J. Dudley Johnston Award for Major Achievement in the Field of Photographic Criticism or the History of Photography goes to Professor Emeritus Liz Wells. Liz, a writer, curator and lecturer, is Professor Emeritus in Photographic Culture in the Faculty of Arts at the University of Plymouth, where she remains active in the faculty's international environmental arts research networks. In 2017, she received an honorary doctorate from the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, and in 2021, she was awarded Honoured Educator, Society for Photographic Education in the United States. Liz has curated many national and international exhibitions. Her research in photographic culture focuses on land, landscape, place and environment, as well as on photographic theory and practices. She is currently investigating histories of botanical photography, about which remarkably little has been written, other than in terms of aesthetics. She is working towards a proposal for a monograph on botany and photography. The award for photographic publication goes to Craig Atkinson. Craig is a publisher, researcher and senior lecturer in fine art. He has taught since graduating in 1999, completing his Masters with distinction in 2007 and becoming a Fellow of the Higher Education Academy in 2018. Since 2005, Craig has managed Café Royal Books, a publishing house he set up as an antidote to the slow, expensive, geographically tied painting practice he had at the time. The initial publications were produced as a way of disseminating art without having to rely on the gallery system. Craig's own practice became more involved with the use of photography, and his publications have followed the same path. Since 2012, Café Royal Books has published over 70 titles a year, each focusing on documentary photography made in the latter half of the 20th century, which have links to Britain and Ireland. The books focus on social and cultural change, protest, holiday, leisure and recreation, the everyday, the obscure, folk traditions, music, sport and religion, amongst other things. The work published is mostly unseen and previously unpublished, and the archive as a whole is believed to be the largest accessible printed archive of this genre of photography. Education lies at the heart of all our activities at the Royal Photographic Society, as we deliver our charitable objective of educating the public in the art and science of photography. Those who work in education are recognised through the Society's Education Award, and this year the recipient of this award is Andrew Dudley. Andrew is Professor of Educational Development at London South Bank University in the School of Arts and Creative Industries. Appointed in 2000 as Head of Division of Media Arts, he led an expanding undergraduate programme of new media courses until 2007. Prior to his appointment at LSBU, he was Head of Film and Photography at Newport School of Art, University of Wales, between 1993 and 2000. Andrew has played a critical role in photography in higher education over 2 decades, during which there was rapid and radical technological change in the practices of visual imaging. In addition to his writing and thinking about the transformation of photography, Andrew has contributed to national policy papers on photography education, co-directed the Arts Council Photography Conference with the Arnold Feeney in Bristol in 1992, and was chair of the Arts Council Photography Advisory Group between 1993 to 1995. He's on the advisory boards of Photographies and Philosophy of Photography, and continues to regularly peer review. His monograph, Forget Photography, published in 2021 by Goldsmith Press, is an impassioned plea to rethink photography's place in computational culture. Young people are often at the heart of education, and the Society's Vic Odden Award recognises a notable achievement in the art of photography by a photographer aged under 35. The recipient this year is Carly Clark, a British documentary and portrait photographer. After completing her BA in photography at Middlesex University, she was awarded the Luck Hill Postgraduate Photography Scholarship for her master's degree in photography. Her work mainly focuses on social and political issues that may otherwise go unnoticed. But when she was diagnosed with Hodgkin lymphoma in 2012, she created a self-portrait project, Reality Trauma, documenting her journey through treatment and recovery. 7 years later, when her younger brother Joe was diagnosed with the same type of cancer, Carly created a second project, In the Blood. Reality Trauma has been widely commended and has been featured worldwide on BBC News Online, BBC TV Local News, photography podcasts, and on a radio show. She has won several honourable mentions for her projects through the International Photography Awards and has been shortlisted for the Portrait of Britain. Her work has been widely published and has been shown at the National Portrait Gallery in London. The RPS Award for Editorial, Advertising and Fashion Photography goes to Nadine Ajara. Nadine is a London-born photographer who studied photography at UAL's London College of Fashion. Her work focuses primarily on the subjects of identity and diversity, informed by her own Nigerian-Jamaican background. She is drawn to non-traditional faces, with the aim of showcasing a new standard of beauty and giving life to the uniqueness of disparate cultures. Nadine shoots for numerous publications such as WSJ Magazine, British Vogue, Vogue US, Vogue Italia, Luncheon, and More or Less. Her January 2019 cover story with Dua Lipa, Binks Walton and Letitia Wright made Nadine the first woman of colour to shoot the cover of any Vogue edition in the magazine's 125-year history. She has also worked with Dior, Hermès, Stella McCartney, Nina Ricci and Valentino Red, creating still and film campaigns. Nadine received the ICP Award in 2020. The Royal Photographic Society's Hud Medal was first awarded in 1933 and recognises photography and public service. Hoda Afza was born in Tehran and is now based in Australia. She completed a bachelor's degree in fine art photography in Tehran and her PhD thesis in creative arts at Curtin University. Hoda began her career as a documentary photographer in Iran in 2005 and since 2007 has lived in Australia, where she practices as a visual artist and also lectures in photography and fine art. Through her art practice, Hoda explores the nature and possibilities of documentary image making. Working across photography and moving image, she considers the representation of gender, marginality and displacement. Her project, Agonistes, was exhibited in the RPS Gallery in 2021.
My name is Hoda Afshar and I'm very honored to receive the Hood Medal in recognition of my photographic work. I would like to express my deepest thanks to the Royal Photographic Society for this incredible award and also acknowledge the important work of the past recipients. Many of these artists have been a great inspiration to me, and so it's an honor to be recognized alongside them. I'm especially humbled by the fact that this award is given in recognition of a body of work that is considered to be of public benefit or service in raising awareness of current issues. Throughout my career as a photographer, I have tried to use art and image making to explore and to communicate important issues by drawing attention to people and to social realities that are often overlooked or ignored. Using photography to make the world a bit different by inviting us to see it differently. So if receiving this award is indication that I have at all succeeded in doing this, then this achievement feels that much greater. Thank you again.
The RPS was involved with the beginnings of cinema in the 1890s and recognises two aspects of this area of photography. The Lumière Award is given for major achievement in cinematography, video or animation, and this year is given to John Akomfrah. John is a hugely respected artist and filmmaker whose works are characterised by their investigations into memory, post-colonialism, temporality and aesthetics, and often explores the experiences of migrant diasporas globally. He was a founding member of the influential Black Audio Film Collective, which started in London in 1982, alongside the artists David Lawson and Lena Gopal, who he still collaborates with today. John, with Lena and David, founded the award-winning film and television production company Smoking Dog Films in 1997. The award for cinematic production recognises a sustained contribution in the production or development of film for the cinema, television, online or new media. This year's recipient is Werner Herzog. Herzog, born in Munich in 1942, grew up as a child in a remote valley in the Bavarian mountains, unaware of the existence of cinema. From the age of 15, he started to develop film projects, but since no one was willing to finance them, he worked the night shift as a welder in a steel factory during the last years of high school. He made his first film at the age of 19. Herzog has written, produced and directed some 70 films, has published books of prose, staged about a dozen operas, acted in films and founded his own Rogue Film School. Herzog's films are characterised by a dreamlike quality, and he is acclaimed as one of the most groundbreaking contemporary directors. We now move on to the Royal Photographic Society Honorary Fellowships, which are awarded to up to 8 distinguished people connected to the art or science of photography. Nominations always exceed the available number, and it is my great pleasure to announce this year's recipients. Leah Abril is a research-based artist working with photography, text and sound. After graduating in journalism and working as an editor at Colours magazine, she focused on developing long-term projects on uneasy and hidden realities about women's rights, grief and biopolitics. She is the author of several books, and On Abortion, published in 2018, was nominated for the Deutsche Börse Prize and the winner of the Aperture Paris Photo Best Book Award. Her installations have been exhibited in more than 15 countries and are part of collections such as the Centre Pompidou, FRAC, Musée de l'Essai, Fotomuseum Winterthur, MOCP or MNAC. Her career has been recognised with the Prix de la Photo in Arles, the Hood Medal in London and the Foam Paul Huff Award in Amsterdam, among others. Abril's next book, On Rape, has just been published. Dawood Bey began his career as an artist in 1975 with a series of photographs, Harlem, USA, which were later exhibited in his first one-person exhibition at the Studio Museum in Harlem in 1979. He has since had numerous exhibitions worldwide. His works are included in the permanent collections of over 50 museums throughout the United States and Europe. Dawood's work is the subject of several monographs and publications, and he is the recipient of the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation Fellowship, also known as the Genius Grant. He has received fellowships from United States artists, the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts, among many others. Dawood is currently Professor of Art and a former Distinguished College Artist at Columbia College, Chicago, where he has taught since 1998. Victor Bergin is a British artist and theorist who lives in France. He first came to prominence in the late 1960s through his contributions to the first museum shows of conceptual art. His still and moving image work is represented in major public and private collections worldwide. Bergin's books on photography include Thinking Photography, 1982, and The Camera, Essence and Apparatus, from 2018. His other books include The End of Art Theory, 1986, In Different Spaces, 1996, and The Remembered Film, from 2004. Bergin is Professor Emeritus of History of Consciousness at the University of California, Santa Cruz, Emeritus Millard Chair of Fine Art, Goldsmiths College, University of London, and Professor of Visual Culture, Department of Art and Media Technology, Winchester School of Art, University of Southampton. Craig Easton is an international multi-award winning photographer whose work is deeply rooted in the documentary tradition. He shoots long-term projects exploring issues around social policy, identity, and a sense of place. His work mixes portraiture, landscape, and reportage approaches to storytelling, often working collaboratively with others to incorporate words, pictures, and audio in a research-based practice that weaves a narrative between contemporary experience and history. Craig's photographs are published and exhibited around the world and held in private collections and museum archives internationally. In April 2021, he was awarded the prestigious title of Photographer of the Year at the Sony World Photography Awards for his series Bank Top. Ming Smith was born in Detroit, Michigan, and was raised in Columbus, Ohio. Her introduction to photography was from her father, who was a dedicated amateur photographer, and her mother, who gave her a Brownie camera to photograph some of her kindergarten classmates. Smith's photography focuses on black and white street photography, a format that she describes as "you have to catch a moment that would never ever return again and do it justice." Ming was the first female member to join Kamoinge, a collective of black photographers in New York in the 1960s, working to document black life. Smith would go on to be the first black woman photographer to be included in the collections of the Museum of Modern Art. Since the 1980s, Jo Ratcliffe's photographs have reflected her ongoing preoccupation with the South African landscape and the ways in which it figures in the country's imagery, particularly the violent legacies of apartheid. In a country with a powerful tradition of social documentary, Ratcliffe became known for her distinctive photographic approach in photographing spaces of violence and conflict, drawing attention to the absent and unseen, alluding to the traces of meaning beyond the evidentiary. From 2007 to 2010, Ratcliffe documented the aftermath of war in Angola, producing 3 books: Terrano Occupado, 2008, As Terras do Fim do Mundo, 2010, and The Borderlands, 2013. Ratcliffe has been deeply involved in the development of young photographers and has taught within various formal and informal contexts, including Wits University, the Salzburg Summer Academy, and in particular the Market Photo Workshop, founded by David Goldblatt. She has also initiated a number of independent public and educational projects that reflect on history, memory and identity in South Africa. A retrospective of her work, Jo Ratcliffe Drives, took place at the Art Institute of Chicago between 2020 and 2021. Earlier this year, she was a finalist for the Deutsche Bus Photography Foundation Prize in London.
Hi, my name is Jo Ratcliffe. I'm a South African photographer. When I started working in the early 1980s, it was a time when the anti-apartheid struggle was really beginning to mobilize quite intensely. And photography at that time was very much characterized by its direct public address. It was about advocacy, and its language was also directed towards very clear messaging, sharp focus, black and white, unambiguous imagery. And I didn't really fit that mode. I wanted to find a language that was politically engaged, but that could be expressive and poetic all at the same time. And that led me to various experiments over the years with various pieces of equipment, different kinds of modes of working. And so to get this award feels quite extraordinary. It feels like such a fantastic acknowledgement that this can be proper photography, and it's not something that I ever would have expected, and I'm enormously grateful. And to be in the kind of lineage and the company that I'm in also is fantastically unexpected. So thank you very much to everybody who has brought me to this moment. Thank you.
Daphne Talmore is an artist and lecturer based in London, whose practice encompasses photography, spatial interventions, curation and collaborations. Her photographs are included in public collections such as the National Trust, Victoria and Albert Museum, Deutsche Bank and Hiscox, and in private collections internationally. Her work has been featured in publications such as Architectural Review, The Guardian, Paper Journal, C4 Journal, American Suburb X, 1000 Words, BJP and Hot Shoe, to name a few. Her first monograph, Constructed Landscapes, published by FW Books, was released in October 2020 and longlisted for the 2021 Krasner-Kraut's Photography Book Award. Ajamu X is a fine artist, neurodivergent photographer, archive curator and radical sex activist. His practice incorporates portraits, nudes and studio-based constructed imagery which unapologetically celebrates black queer bodies, the erotic, difference and pleasure as resistance. He is the co-founder of Rucus Federation, Black LGBTQ Archive, with Dr. Topher Campbell, and is one of the leading specialists on black queer heritage, history and cultural memory in the UK. Most recently, he has co-founded Spit and Spider Press with Dr. Sheena Calvert. This is an alternative publishing venture focusing on the radical materiality of the book. Ajamo is currently a PhD candidate at the Royal College of Art. His research investigates the materiality of the darkroom and the sensual material attributes and physicality of the photograph.
My name is Ajamu X, and I am delighted to be nominated for this fellowship by the Royal Photographic Society at this stage of a 25 plus year practice as a darkroom, and a socially engaged fine art photographer. It has come from an institution I've always respected, and I am thrilled to join this history and this list of esteemed photographers, many of whom I have engaged with through print media, exhibitions as a younger photographer, and many of whom, past and present, I continue to draw inspiration from. As a queer artist, my work through playful yet serious provocations, experimentation has been to transgress and play with and against contemporary theoretical debates concerning the queer black body, the erotic, pleasure, sex, and difference. Just as important as content, I am probably more obsessed with process and aesthetics, with a deep interest in materiality and the sensuality, physicality of the print itself, and in ways of foregrounding the material body in relation to photographic production. It is great to join this year's list of nominees. I also want to thank so many individuals who've been part of this beautiful and at times challenging journey. I would add that photography is much more than the image. Photography offers a philosophy of life itself. Thank you very much.
We now come to our final 3 awards. The RPS Progress Medal was first awarded in 1878 and recognises scientific or technical progress in photography or imaging. The RPS Progress Medal for 2022 goes jointly to Graham Hudson and Leonardo Cariglione. Graham Hudson is an engineer at BT Research Laboratories and the founding chairman of the International Joint Photographic Expert Group, JPEG, which in the 1980s developed the original JPEG image compression technique. Graham joined BT from school as a technician apprentice in 1965, and following a BT University scholarship, he graduated with a BSc Honours degree in Electrical and Electronic Engineering from City University, London. He then joined BT Laboratories, where he had responsibilities for developments in videotex, teleconferencing, video conferencing, and broadcast television. In the 1980s, he participated in the international standardisation of videotex and image coding in European and worldwide bodies. In 1985, with European funding, he established and project managed the Esprit Pica project to develop the best photographic coding techniques for standardisation. The 2 major standards bodies, ISO and CCITT, established JPEG to develop an international standard for photographic coding and asked Graham to become chairman. The JPEG standard resulted from a successful international collaboration of companies from Europe, the USA and Japan, and the team did groundbreaking work of lasting value to the information services, photographic and television industries.
I'm surprised, delighted and honoured to receive this prestigious Royal Photographic Society Award for JPEG. The original JPEG activity took place in the 80s. The world had started to go digital, but technology was primitive. Telecom and computer companies were looking to develop multimedia services based on television and PC terminals. We evaluated the leading scientific coding techniques of the time and chose a discrete cosine transform technique to be standardised. We thought we'd produced a good standard. We didn't imagine the range of applications it will be used for, or for how long it will be used. JPEG is 30 years old and still going strong. It is used to code billions of photos every day, and it is embedded in the world's archives. JPEG was a great team effort from engineers and scientists from around the world. I'd like to mention and thank the key people in the original JPEG team. Alain Léger from France, Birger Nies and Jürgen Warben from Denmark, Istvan Sebastian from Germany, Greg Wallace from the USA, who followed me as chairman of JPEG, and my colleague Dennis Tricker from BT. As a keen photographer, I'm particularly pleased to have worked on a project of significance to photography and to receive this award from the Royal Photographic Society. Thank you.
Leonardo Cariglione obtained his master's degree from the Polytechnic of Turin and his doctorate from the University of Tokyo. He has been at the forefront of a range of initiatives that have helped shape media technology and business as we know them today. Among these is the Moving Pictures Expert Group, MPEG, a standards committee, which he founded and chaired for 32 years. In June 2020, he left ISO and the group he founded no longer exists. In September 2020, Leonardo created MPAI, Moving Picture Audio and Data Coding by Artificial Intelligence, a non-profit organisation developing AI-enabled data coding standards while bridging the gap between standards and their practical use. In a little more than a year, MPAI has published 5 standards, has 16 ongoing projects, and has issued calls for technologies that extend from advanced human-machine communication to the execution of AI applications in a secure environment, and neural network watermarking. Leonardo is the recipient of several awards, among these the IBC John Tucker Award, the Edward Rhine Foundation Award, the IEEE Masaru Iwaku Consumer Electronics Award, and the Kilby Foundation Award. Since January 2004, Leonardo is the CEO of Sedio.net, a company providing advanced media technologies, solutions and services, and advising major multinationals on matters related to digital media.
It is a great honor for me to receive an award from the Royal Photographic Society, the oldest society in the image domain. But I would also like to tell you why I think that the son of a carpenter and a shopkeeper can aspire to receive that award. It is because my father, a self-taught man, instilled in me the desire to learn, and my mother gave me the means to satisfy the desire. My high school Salesian teachers urged me to find my mission in life while giving me a sound classical education. My professors at the Polytechnic of Turin made me an engineer, and my years in Japan as a PhD candidate at the University of Tokyo, where I lived in a very different cultural environment. It took me 15 years to develop the idea to convert 30 years of compression in audio and video achieved by a global research community to globally available products and services. How? By convincing an industry ready to adopt local, sectorial, even proprietary standards to adopt global standards instead. I realize now that it would take me too long to tell you how I did it. For sure, it was not a veni, vidi, vici matter, but I can say more about that at another ceremony. I would like to conclude by saying that humans need education at all times of their life, and blessed are those who can find teachers imparting the right education to them. But they must have a goal, live as a mission, and they must have a fair amount of determination.
The Royal Photographic Society Centenary Medal recognises a sustained and significant contribution to the art of photography. Destiny Deacon is a descendant of the Kuku, far north Queensland, and Arab Mer, Torres Strait people. Since the 1990s, Destiny's work has been primarily involved with performative photography, exploring Indigenous identity with often provocative and humorous imagery that mocks and satirises cliched and racist stereotypes. Partly autobiographical, and partly fictitious, Destiny's work is an insightful comedy that is effective in establishing a discourse about political, Indigenous and feminist concerns. Destiny received a doctorate in education from La Trobe University in 2019.
I'm amazed that Royal Photographic Society has awarded me the Centenary Medal for 2022. Well, such an honour. But now that I think about it, I've been taking pictures of family, friends and things since growing up a poor and shy girl in racist Australia with an Instamatic camera in the 1960s, and then feeling guilty asking Mum for her last dollars to develop the film at the chemist. It was a big deal and half the photos didn't turn out. Thank goodness digital technology and mobile phones make photography accessible for everyone these days. I've been showing in public galleries and international exhibitions for over 32 years and still never had a fancy camera. I try to make pictures to disturb, be funny, sad, universal, and make people think, especially about us First Nations people. My photos got me to travel around Australia, the South Pacific, Asia, the UK, Europe, Africa, the Caribbean and the Americas. Thank you, Royal Photographic Society, for recognising me, a First Nation photographer from Australia. I feel blessed.
Our final award recognises an outstanding contribution to photography. Howard Greenberg is one of the world's foremost photography gallerists. He is an authority on 19th and 20th century photography and an acknowledged leader within the fine art market. Employing his keen eye for artistic value and a unique historical perspective, Greenberg has built a reputation for rediscovering significant photographers from the past and establishing a market for their work. He also represents and exhibits photographs by many of the acknowledged masters and their estates, including Alfred Stieglitz, Edward Weston, Jacques-Henri Latigue, Walker Evans, William Klein, Bruce Davidson, Saul Letter, and Henri Cartier-Bresson. More recently, Greenberg has added mid-career contemporary artists to the gallery's roster, including Edward Batinsky, Yoel Meyerowitz, Kenro Itsu, Youngin Lee, Frank Golk, and Nadav Kanda. His personal photography collection has been the subject of 4 major museum exhibitions, and in September 2018, his collection was acquired in its entirety by the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. Howard Greenberg remains a key and influential figure in the market for fine art photography.
Hello, everyone. This is Howard Greenberg here, talking to you from my apartment in Berlin, where I now live. I am deeply humbled, thankful, and a bit surprised to be receiving this honor from the Royal Photographic Society. It did indeed come as a surprise, and I was tickled to receive the recognition, and especially to be in the company of others who've received this same recognition over the past 10 or so years. So many people I admire in the field, so thank you very much for that. I've been asked to talk for a minute or two about my career. I've done a lot of things in photography, so it's a bit hard to stuff it all into a minute or two. However, I'll do my best. I started out as a photographer, which occurred after college, as I moved to Woodstock, New York 50 years ago, and quickly became interested in the history of photography, which pushed me to open, at first, a nonprofit gallery and school workshop program and Center for Photography in Woodstock. I'm proud that it's still going today, 45 years later. And then, of course, I had to make a living. Being a freelance photographer wasn't doing much for me, so I with my profound interest in the history of the medium, I opened a gallery in Woodstock, a very small place, and I was off and running. That was 1981. The gallery moved to New York City in 1986, a very small space in Soho, and it grew from there. So what have I done all that time since I opened the gallery? Well, I always believed in publishing, particularly about photographers who either had no other books or publications, or those who were really underknown. And one way or another, we've managed to, the gallery staff and I've always had a wonderful gallery staff. I could not do any of this alone. And we've published, I think, around 50 different books and catalogs over the years on many, many different photographers. In one exhibition of my collection in Amsterdam a few years back, they were good enough to provide vitrines and spread out all the books and catalogs that were published. And it was a great surprise to me. I really didn't count before, and I didn't know there were so many. Anyway, what else? I guess I'm best known for my interest and discovery, in many cases rediscovery, of truly wonderful photographers that lived, but as I say with the publications, were not really recognized so well before. You might say this was mostly New York centric, as I was in New York, and those photographers, if they were alive back then, and their work was more accessible to me at that time. And the field was still early enough and open enough that while the greats, as we acknowledge them today, people like Irving Penn or Robert Frank and others, were already tied up with other galleries, as I say, there was still so much incredible photography that I learned about that was available to me. So I was able to build a stable, if you will, of first very great photographers that the world had not known about. And then, of course, part of my mission was to get that work out into the world, and that led to just dozens of successful, gratifying relationships with other galleries all over the world. Museums, of course. I worked with so many curators. And that I think is a very important aspect of what I've accomplished during all these years. What else? I don't know what else to say, and I'm sure my 2 minutes is up by now, but I have to acknowledge the photographers themselves that I've come to know, these great photographers, and work closely with people like Sol Leiter, Gordon Parks, William Klein, who, as we know, just passed away the other day, and many, many others. That's been the real blessing, and that's been what I am truly most thankful for in all these years, is to have this great association of friendship with so many of the best photographers who've ever lived. That has been a gift. So thank you again, Royal Photographic Historical Society, for bestowing this honor on me. I am truly humbled and grateful, and I hope to see you all around soon. Okay, bye-bye.
That concludes the 2022 Royal Photographic Society Awards. It only remains for me to thank our awards chair, Sir Brian Pomeroy, and all the members of the Royal Photographic Society Awards Committee, who give so generously of their time and expertise, and the Society's awards manager, Jo MacDonald, for her tireless commitment to the RPS Awards over the past year. Finally, I would like to offer my personal congratulations to all of our award recipients. Each has made such a unique and important contribution to their particular area of activity in the art and science of photography and the moving image. I'll leave you with a selection of some of their truly inspiring work. Thank you.